One of my all-time favorite video games ever is unquestionably Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past for Super Nintendo Entertainment System. Ever since I was a youngster, I played the hell out of it, collecting rupees, slaying bad guys, solving puzzles. You get the idea. And although I loved the game, I also thought of it a bit bizarre and even frightening factors. Besides, I still love that game to death. In addition, in being such a vivid fan of the game, I'm also a fan of video games. Nowadays, I can't just seem to enjoy video games the way I previously did. A lot of them nowadays are all cheap knockoffs of each other, like FPS games, for instance. Anyways, as I said, I loved old school video games. I primarily played Nintendo as a kid. Unfortunately, I had broken my original Super Nintendo many years ago, and at the time I had no idea how to download an emulator. I became upset because even in my youth I loved 8-bit and 16-bit video games. Nowadays I can play or watch an old video game with the typing of a few keys and a click of a mouse. But there is one game that I would absolutely not play if it was on the old-fashioned gaming console: A Link to the Past. Luckily for me, I met a good friend of mine in 8th grade. His name was Ray, and he was into video games, comics, and movies. He too was a fan of retro video games and modern ones, but don't ask me to tell why he likes them. He just had a working SNES. About a few months back, Ray and I had finished our college semester and we wanted to celebrate. We both attended a community college and we were both majoring in difficult subjects. So it was only natural that we have a little fun after such arduous 3 months. I inquired that we go over to his house and play a few classic games. So we did, and I couldn't wait to get my hands on A Link to the Past. The only problem was that Ray didn't have it. Regardless, we still played the shit out of all the classics: Super Mario World, Mortal Kombat, despite not having the blood we've come to know and love, Donkey Kong's Country 1, 2, and 3, Killer Instinct, Super Castlevania 4, Super Mario World 2, Yoshi's Island, and all those 16-bit gems. But the urge to play A Link to the Past was still burning within me. The next morning I suggested we go to our local comic book store and we purchase a copy of it. He eagerly agreed. I'm not much into comics, but let me tell you, they had a treasure trove of comics, video games, action figures, posters, and various other paraphernalia. I saw that they have an enormous library of SNES games, along with Genesis, Atari 600, and Nintendo 64 games, and all for sure, A Link to the Past was among them. I scanned the shelves slowly with my index finger and voila, I found it. I pulled it off the shelf and took a look at it. There was a sticker underneath the sticker that displayed the game's title. It said "used" in all capital letters. In all honesty, I hate purchasing used products, especially something as cherished as this. I tried to find another copy that didn't say anything, but to my chagrin I couldn't. So I settled for the used copy. I wasn't going to let something as potent as the game being used get in the way of me having hours of fun. We both got to Ray's house and I popped it into the SNES cartridge slot. Before we began playing, he went downstairs to go snatch us some snacks and soda. I pulled the game out of the slot and examined the game's cartridge. It looked normal enough, no signs of damage, and it was in fairly good condition. That is, when I turned it on around, the text on the back of the cartridge informing the player has to now clean the cartridge and how to properly use it when it was written backwards. It was still eligible if it was held up in the mirror, but why would anyone do that? And then I turned around to inspect the front. There was no official seal of Nintendo on it. That's when I thought, this might be a bootleg, pirated version of the game. The idea got me a little pissed off, since I wanted to play the original, but I decided I was jumping into conclusions too early. After all, I haven't even played the game yet. So Ray came back and I momentarily forgot about the backwards text and the lack of official seals, and I popped it into the console. We both sat in eager anticipation, since he too was a fan of this game. Then that familiar Nintendo presence flashed on the screen with a little rupee sound, and I got excited. But then my excitedness quickly descended into frustration as the game suddenly displayed a array of pixels and exotic colors all over the screen. It seems that the game had glitched up in the process. I rolled my eyes and I took it out of the cartridge. I blew on it, hoping that it would get rid of the causing the glitching. I popped the cartridge back in and turned it on once again. Again, the Nintendo Presents logo appeared, only this time the rupee sound clip had a lower pitch. I arched my eyebrow. I don't know if Ray noticed it, but I assumed that he didn't since he didn't say anything. Then the primitive 5-dimensional triangles that would form the Triforce behind the logo began rotating their way backwards in the middle of the screen, except the little tune that played when they did playing backwards distorted and glitchy. I turned to Ray and said, "What the hell is going on?" He just shrugged. Maybe the game's a little old. I figured he was right. After all, this was a used cartridge. When the Triforce had formed, the sword came down and made a seething sound, except the heroic fanfare did not play. Instead, there was no music at all. Interestingly, underneath the title was supposed to say "A Link to the Past." There was nothing but a mess of glitched pixels. Now this was getting weird. I pressed start and everything was smooth on the file creation screen. I wrote down my name and started the game, but still there was no music to be heard. A familiar darkness and a bird's eye view of the room came on, showing Link asleep in his bed and his uncle sitting in the table doing who knows what. Then some text appeared on the screen like the original, but it wasn't the text I remember. It said, "Help me. Please help me. Don't let this happen to me." Then the text disappeared. Now I already knew something was wrong when that happened. Zelda's message was not supposed to say that, sure. It had been a long time since I played this game, but I don't remember her ever saying that. Now I was certain this was a hack or a bootleg or something. Ray said, "What the hell? She's never said that." I agreed and made my suggestion of it being a hack, bootleg. He said, "That sucks." I figured that even if it wasn't the original, it might still be kinda cool. He agreed, so we let it go on. Around here, I was expecting the screen to brighten up and then for my uncle to tell me to stay in bed. But no, the room remained dark and said, "Don't move a muscle. You've done enough damage already." And then, while still in the dark, he marched outside with his sword and shield. The music did not start either. I could hear the rain outside, but that's it. Then Link hopped out of bed and I moved the D-pad around. Everything seemed functional. I went over to lift the pots, but the game didn't seem to respond. I tried every button, but nothing worked. Then I noticed that the treasure wasn't in the room. The one in the torch lantern. This was very weird. Then I decided I better leave the house. Interestingly, the house never lit up. It stayed dark throughout the duration of everything. I then walked outside and there was that familiar rain and thunder. I walked outside and began investigating everything that seemed normal. When I approached those guards at the barricade the path when you first go exploring, I approached one of them and all he said was, "This is a sad night." And then this next line of text that was bizarre Hylian writing that you need the Book of Medora to translate. I spoke in the other one and he said, "There was nothing we could have done to prevent it, but you could have." And that was all he said. I said to Ray, "Man, what the hell is going on here?" "No idea. Pretty crappy bootleg so far." I agreed. This was weird, and I had no idea just what the hell everyone in the game was talking about. Did somebody die or something? Decided just to go north, to fall into the hole where you obtain your sword and shield from your uncle. I went up there and suddenly, the screen became very glitchy. Trees were out of place, and some trees and the water from the dark world seemed to be crossed with the light worlds and stuff. I walked forward and suddenly I fell into an invisible hole. Suddenly Link fell to the path that resembled the location where you received the Master Sword from the pestle in the Lost Woods. Except the colors, more looked like the skull in the woods in the dark world. And for the first time, there was music. It was eerie little haunting tune that played in the sanctuary. The one that plays after you rescue Zelda from Hyrule Castle. I slowly turned to Ray, curious if he was getting weirded out as I was. Indeed he was. This certainly was turning out to be an extraordinary bootleg, if I could call it that at this point. I pushed forward and pressed up and walked up the forest path, only to see various denizens and Karjgario village dotted around the sides of the grass. I approached one, and all he said was, "I hope you're satisfied." I then approached another Karjgario villager, and he said, "You'll get what you deserve." What the hell was going on here? It sounded as if they were all angry at me. I then saw a villager who looked like a child, walked up to him and said, "You meanie, you'll pay for this, one way or another." Finally, there was the last guy standing on the upper right-hand corner of the screen. I approached him, and he said, "We'll better be off without you, neglector." Just to be sure they didn't say anything else, I went back to spoke to everyone there. No, they all uttered the same melancholy lines. Who would do all this crap? It didn't make sense. I moved up the screen and shifted north, and then I saw Zelda in what appeared to be a casket. She had the same sprite as she was lying there, being transported to Angenham. Suddenly, a text box appeared saying, "This is all because of you." When it happened, I was free to roam the area. I approached Zelda's coffin, but I couldn't interact with it in any way, so I just walked around the place, thinking of what to do next. Ray then said, "Maybe you should try going back." Well, that seemed like the only logical thing left to do, so I headed down back to where I came from, when all of a sudden another text box appeared saying, "I don't think so." And Link turned himself around without me pressing anything, as if the game made him to. I tried to do it again, but the same thing occurred. Just then, the music stopped abruptly, and suddenly the screen began shaking and Zelda's casket fell inside the hole that was formed from the earthquake. When it did, some scary music played, and the same music from where you defeat Angenham and Ganondorf turns into a bat and flies away. Suddenly, there was a large crater there. Not knowing what to do, I jumped inside of it. The next thing I knew, I was in the area with two narrow parallel walls on both sides of me that were gray-black color. Also, there was a shallow red water on the ground that looked colored like that. I presumed to resemble blood. I walked up to the hall and came to a dead end. The only thing was telepathic tile was that on the wall in front of me, and on both sides. There were some doors, but they were sealed shut. They were the kind you need to open with a switch, or after defeating a few enemies. Anyways, I directed my attention towards the telepathic tile. I went over to try to communicate with it, but it just gave me that alien text. Basically, it just left me there without giving me any clues on what I should do to proceed. I then remembered that I did not once had pressed the pause to check my inventory. I did, and interestingly, I had the book of Medora already. I have no idea how I got it. Perhaps the hacker or programmer already have given to me at least the start of the game. Well, I did the only rational thing I thought I could do. I equipped it and translated the text. Interestingly, it gave me a choice and asked, "Do you feel guilty? Yes or no?" I heard Ray out loud, and I turned to him. He shrugged his shoulders and say no. So I did. All I heard was that sound signifying that I had done something incorrect. So I pulled out the book again and asked me the same thing. This time I answered yes, and all of a sudden the two doors on the side opened. Then dozens upon dozens of soldiers poured in the room. They all approached Link and began attacking him repeatedly. It didn't take long for him to die, since he only had 3 hearts. Then Link spun around and collapsed onto the floor, like he usually does when he dies. Instead of giving me a choice if I wanted to continue, the game suddenly took me to what appeared to be a Dark World's version of Death Mountain. I walked forward, and all of a sudden, I saw an unfamiliar character sprite. If anything, it looked like the hacker modified Ganon's sprite to appear red and give him a few extra features, like devil horns. He was also holding that trident spear, except it was shaded black. It looks like he was made to resemble Satan, so I approached the Satan-like sprite, and he spoke to me when I got close enough. He said, "Your punishment is long overdue." Suddenly, he began spinning his lance around, and I couldn't move. Just then a laser beam shot out of Lance, and it hit me, killing Link instantly. Instead of the screen turning black with just Link laying there, the eerie screen turned red, and Link's sprite suddenly turned completely black. And that was that. The game froze there. Nothing moved or anything like that. I pressed every button, but nothing happened. I turned to Ray again and we just shrugged. He took the game out of the SNES and just looked at it one last time. And that was when I noticed that the game had no circuit board inside. How was that even impossible? I called Ray over to examine this. He's always been very much more savvy about an old game hardware and into disassembling stuff like that, like old consoles, TVs, radios, etc. And I knew right away he knew something wasn't right. I popped the game back into the console to see if it would work again, but this time all it gave me was the glitchy screen like the first time. I tried again and again, but it all went in vain. By the next morning, Ray had assembled the cartridge and found out there was indeed no circuit board inside the cartridge. It was just a shell. Then he reassembled it and we tried again, but to no avail. The game had never given us what it originally did the first night. How it functioned that night, we'll never know.
What's up, my pretties? It's the Lion Queen here. I want to appreciate you all for tuning into this video, and I do appreciate you guys supporting my video by giving this video likes and stuff. If you really enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like, comment and subscribe if you're new, ring the bell for notifications to when I upload so that way you guys will get updated for whenever I upload. If you want to follow me on Twitter or DeviantArt, feel free to leave a follow on those if you are interested in following me on those socials. If you want to support my backup channel, known as Miss Dark Shigo, feel free to subscribe to it, as a link to that will also be in the About page section. And with that being said, and that being the case, thank you so much for watching, my pretties, and as always, please stay pretty.